Right, let's start. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the ARM template as an infrastructure as a code. So we are going to talk about some do's and don'ts around ARM template. There are many best practices already out there. So I'm not going to talk about all the details here. Oops. But sorry about that. But I'm going to point out several interesting facts we can consider for your the ARM template deployment. So So my name is Justin. I'm from Maxia, and I'm Microsoft MVP for both Azure and developer technologies. And you can follow me on Twitter or blog or LinkedIn here. So before we starting, I'd like to ask a question. So have you been using ARM template at work? So heavily? Not heavily? Do you use ARM template for your CI/CD pipeline as well? Yeah, for everyday use. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, there's So if we are using the Azure resources, we are pretty much using ARM template here. So tonight I'm going to introduce what ARM template is, just in case who are not familiar with ARM template, and then I'm going to start talking about how to write ARM template, then test ARM template, and how to deploy ARM template. And finally, I'm going to talk about how to manage deployment history for the ARM template. So yeah, first things first. Seems to be back or no? So yeah, let's talk about what the ARM template is. So before year 2014, we don't use ARM template before. So we deploy Azure resources as a classic mode. So in the classic mode, each resource is independent, so independently managed. So there is no relationship between each the Azure resources. So if we want to make some relation between each other, we have to manually implement some kind of tracking the features, so which is not good. Then in year 2014, Microsoft introduces the concept of Azure Resource Manager. Actually, ARM stands for Azure Resource Manager. So yeah, which brings a lot of the great concept. So the core concept of the ARM Azure Resource Manager is resource group, which is the logical grouping of all the Azure resources here. So within that resource group, all the Azure resources can be managed from the lifecycle point of view, like from the creation to the disposal. Right? So so we can easily create the Azure resources within the resource group, and if we don't need it anymore, and simply delete the resource group, and all the resources within that resource group are deleted and at the same time at once. The good thing is in order to deploy Azure resources can be managed within through the templates, which means that template can be used for over and over again for different environments. For example, if we create resources for a dev environment, and we can use the same template for test environment and also for product environment. That kind of things gets much easier by using the ARM templates. Also, ARM template is written in JSON format, so which is maybe agree or maybe not. So which can be much easier than before. So so far we have briefly introduced how ARM template was born. Then we are going to talk about why we need to use the ARM template. So as I said before, the Azure Resource Group is a core concept of ARM, the Azure Resource Manager, and ARM template can be Azure resources are deployed within the resource group. So resource group is core concept here. So if we deploy Azure resources within the resource, and we can, if we don't need it, just delete the group, and all the resources inside the group can be deleted at once. So yeah, this is what I said before, and also repeatability or reusability. We can use the same ARM template over and over again, right? Or we can combine some different ARM templates in one environment, and we can do another combination for another environment. So we can use ARM template over and over again for for different situations. So if I am thinking, so I am assuming I'm a DevOps engineer and I'm managing all like hundreds of thousands of the different environments, then the repeatability or reusability is very crucial for to manage all the Azure resources. Also, within the ARM template, all the resources are clearly defined here. So if we don't define any resources within the ARM template, we cannot deploy into the Azure unless we manually create through the Azure portal or the Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI. Also, using the ARM template is very good for interdependency between the resources. What I mean is, for example, Azure function always relies on the storage account, right? In that case, we have to define a storage account first, then create Azure function, then connect to each other so that the Azure function can have a connection string to the storage account, something like that. Or another example like the web app service instance. If that app service instance requires Azure SQL database, so we can define SQL database first, then add app service instance as a dependency so that all the database connection string can be easily defined into the app service instance, something like that. So that kind of interdependency is easily managed within the ARM template. Also, each resource group and individual resources under the resource group has built-in the resource role-based access control support. So with that, we can easily set up access control for to a certain account. So who can access that resource group or individual resources, or who cannot access to do that, something like that. So which is very easier. Also, the tagging is supported. So tagging, so with tag, we can put some metadata for that who is responsible for the particular resource group or particular resource, or who is going to be the cost center of that Azure resources, something like that. So yeah, the tagging is provides us with a very powerful the metadata stuff. So yeah, we are going to start about best practice here, but so I'm going to define what the best practice here. So actually, best practice doesn't have, we don't have to follow that best practice here. But yeah, if you think, my way is way better, that's fine. So you can do by your own way. But what I'm suggesting here is kind of, if you think about what I'm suggesting tonight and apply it when you get back to work, and maybe make your life much easier. So yeah, so we are going to start talking about writing ARM template first. So think about the YAML. So ARM template doesn't support YAML out of the box because it only supports JSON. But the YAML is a superset of JSON, right? So and there are many tools that we can interchange YAML to JSON or JSON to YAML. So yeah, think about using YAML, right? So yeah, this is an example. The left-hand side, can you see that screen? So left-hand side of the screen is actually the ARM template written in JSON format, right? So see that all those the curly brackets. And can you find that there is the square brackets here? You know, there's a square bracket here, and there's all curly brackets. So it's very hard to find it. And if the ARM template itself and JSON object itself is a flat structure, that should be fine. But usually ARM template has a very nested structure, and sometimes it's very hard to find, where is something, the square bracket, where is some curly bracket, something. And if I miss something, and the ARM template itself is not validated at all. On the other hand, this is the YAML. The same resource, but it is written in YAML. To me, it looks easier and much easier to read, right? So without any sort of the curly brackets or square brackets, it's much easier, right? So this is this is very one of the benefits using YAML, and which means more human readable, which makes us to significantly reduce the human error. So think about using YAML for your work. And if you are using the Visual Studio Code for that, and there is the extension called the JSON to YAML, which can easily convert your YAML definition to the JSON format. So yeah, and anyway, the ARM template only understand the JSON format, so we have to provide the JSON anyway. So write the ARM template with YAML, then convert it into JSON. So something like this. So so again, just single the shortcut key, typing of the shortcut key, you can easily convert it into YAML to JSON to YAML, right there, right? So this is actually I found it very useful. Also, when you write an ARM template, there are variables and parameter section. Okay? So think about using variables only for your resource definition rather than using parameters. What that means is this is a basic structure of ARM template. So there is a parameter section, variable section, resources section, and output section here. So resources section is the only mandatory, excuse me, mandatory field here. And parameters are actually the values passed from the outside, right? So outside means we can manually type, or CI/CD pipeline can manually pass the values through the parameters, right? So ARM template on the parameter section is the only kind of gateway that interacts with outside. And but if we pass the value from parameters directly to resources, that's what we are going to use, what we are using. And also, there is a variables here. Variables are the values that is processed or generated within the ARM template, right? So we can mix up both parameters and variables to define resources here. But I would suggest to use only variables for resource definition, right? So the value passed from the outside through parameters only goes to the variables, right? And the variables use that values to process some informations, and that information should pass to the resources section, right? So by doing so, if there is any error happens, we don't have to scroll all the way up to parameter section, then scroll down all the way down to the variable section over and over again to find the error, right? So instead of doing that, we can, if there is any error, we can only look into the variable section, right? So yeah, don't think about the parameter section for the resource definition, right? So parameters should be used only for the interaction with outside. Also think about using the outputs, actively using outputs. what that means is the output is kind of the underestimated the section. So when we create the resources, and it can generate some information, and that information can be the return back to the console through outputs, right? That information can be like the connection strings, or can be some kind of keys, or can be a very valuable information for the next build or release pipeline task, right? So use this output section very actively so that we can make use of make more rich feature on the release pipeline. So we have discussed about the writing ARM template here. Now we are talking about testing. So do you actually test your ARM template before actual deployment? Right. Yeah, sort of. Yeah, good. So testing is always good. Testing. I like testing. I'm kind of a testing holic. So so this is the PowerShell commandlet, right? So test dash Azure ARM resource group deployment, right? So when we run this one, right? If there is any error on the ARM template, what does it return? It returns nothing, right? It returns nothing. If there is an error, it returns the infamous red the messages, which is not good to me actually. And also, even though the ARM template is valid, right? So even though we pass the validation test using this the commandlet, it doesn't guarantee that we are actually deploying correct Azure resources. For example, we might deploy different SQ, right? We might deploy with different name. We might deploy the resources with different location that we are apart from our expectation. That can always happen when we integrate our CI/CD pipelines, right? So using that commandlet is not enough. Also, the PowerShell commandlet is very hard to handle error. So instead of using the PowerShell the commandlet, think about using the Azure CLI. So this is the command. So the AZ group deployment validate. So it does the same thing as this one, right? But it provides us with the very rich output. So it returns some JSON object, which contains either the error details or validation result, right? So it returns some JSON object, right? So if there is an error, it returns the error object, right? So instead of using the red and unhelpful the error message, but it returns actually very rich error messages. So using Azure CLI for the ARM template validation and testing would be much better, right? Also, as I said, we have no idea what's going to be happening after the resources deployment, right? Resources deployed. So testing is not just validation, but we also test how the deployment behavior will look like, right? So in terms of in terms of the behavior testing, so we can use Pester. So Pester, have you used Pester before? Have you heard about that? So Pester is the PowerShell testing framework. So this is a PowerShell testing framework for like a BDD style testing framework. So we can use this very easily. So this is how the script look like. So describe something and define context and run the Azure CLI within that script. And with that result, we can verify that should be something, right? So with this, we can easily verify how after we deploy after we deploy the ARM template and what we are expecting the results, something like that. So this is the actual the test code, something like that. So within the context here, so we test run the ARM template deployment using Azure CLI. Then it returns a JSON object in here. And with this JSON object, it passed to JSON. Then in here, okay, the provisioning state will be should be succeeded, and that we deploy a logic app in this example, and the logic app name will be look like this, something like that. And also there is the bunch of the other informations, something like, if we use this script for the storage account, whatever, then we can verify we have a correct SKU or correct location or something like that.
So with Pesta you can mix and match PowerShell and CLI?
Yes. Yeah. So CLI is a cross-platform, so we can use within the command prompt or PowerShell or even Bash. Yeah.
So your Pesta you describe it as PowerShell, but then inside your Pesta you can use.
Yes. Yeah. And this is when we run the test script like this, and this is the output screen. So we describe that we are within the context. We define two different tests here, right? So we pass this one. So also Pesta supports the output file, output format. Yeah, I mean Pesta the support the export of the test result using NUnit format. So we can easily integrate with VSTS here. So something like, so this is test result here, right? So Pesta generate an output, and that output can be easily published into our VSTS, so that the dashboard can recognize it, right? And yeah, so we looked at the writing and testing. Now we are moving on to the deploying ARM template.
Are you using Pesta for deploying to production as well? So you test behavior once you deploy to production?
So testing is doing the build process, right? So you can use that Pesta for the release pipeline, or you can use both. Okay. Yeah. So we are moving on to the ARM template deployment. I would suggest to write one ARM template for only one resource. So to confirm the single ARM responsibility, right? Of course, some kind of resources, for example, the app service instance requires the app service instance itself and the configuration settings, right? In that case, we need to combine some more than one resources. But here, usually in general, I would suggest to write ARM template only for one resources, only for one resource.
Can you define interdependencies across multiple ARM templates?
Sorry, say again.
Can you define interdependencies? So let's say you have one ARM template for an SQL server, and you have one ARM template for a web app. Can you define interdependencies between the two?
No. Yeah. So interdependency, in that case, we need to give up using the interdependency. Yeah. But you know, yeah, I will say it again, and also if I will touch it later on. So if we use this approach, and which means one ARM template for one resource, right? Then we can combine all the individual template for one case, right? For example, A, B, C template here, but we need to use A, B, and A and B in different cases. So in that case, we can only we can combine only two ARM template in different scenarios, something like that. So we can it's not just about the single responsibility. It can increase our reusability of the ARM template. So yeah, so think about this, and yeah, this is also I'm going to touch on the Haas question about. So many people they suggested or recommended to use a linked ARM template, link template for that. But I would suggest not to use the link template because link template. If we want to use the link template, we have to upload the individual ARM template to somewhere where publicly accessible, or at least we need to provide them a SaaS token or something like that, right? So, and which is an additional step for our, from my perspective. Instead of using link template, we can simply use or simply let CI/CD pipeline to that take care of them, right? So link template is basically a combination or the combination of the series of the ARM template, right? So if we use a link template, we can use some interdependency there. But if we define the CI/CD pipeline with in the proper order, right? It has the same benefit of using the link template. Or even the using link template has consumed one more deployment history, which will be touched later on, right? So, for example, if we have 5 different ARM templates and using in order to deploy those 5 ARM templates using linked ARM template, then we will consume 6 different deployment history. On the other hand, if we use the CI/CD pipeline, we only consume 5 deployment history, which will be make a huge difference later on. And
when you are building your CI/CD pipeline, you are saying this resource like deploy the web app only after the SQL server has been finished. So you define your dependencies as your tasks in your CD pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there impact on speed when you do that?
Doesn't really matter.
Well, there is impact because with the link template you have if there is no dependencies, all are deployed in
parallel, right?
Yeah.
If you're waiting for them to get deployed one by one in a CI/CD pipeline,
Yeah.
we will need use a parallelization.
Yeah. So the problem, that's a main limitation. I'm waiting for Microsoft to improve that limitation on the link template.
Yeah.
Because deploying or copying it to a blob storage, create a SaaS token is very messy.
Yeah.
I'm expecting them to receive an array of JSONs, right? And then you say with unique IDs, unique names, you send an array of JSONs, and then you say, okay, deploy this and this and this with link template. But until they offer that, I don't like deploying or uploading to a blob storage.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out another thing is if we use a link template, we cannot use parameter files and parameter objects at the same time. We have to choose only one, either side. So, which is very, to me, it's very inconvenient.
Sorry, what do you mean by parameter object and parameter
So,
file?
if we use the link template, we need to provide the template URL and parameter file URL, or template URL and parameter object.
Okay.
So we cannot use both the parameter file URL and parameter object.
So by object you mean overriding some of
We can, that doesn't support. That's not supported. Yeah.
That's from the STS. So from the STS you cannot do that. Is it?
No. So, but if you still want to use the link template, just use it. There's no harm. So we have touched on how to write ARM template, how to test ARM template, how to deploy ARM template. Right now we are going to talk about how to manage deployment history. Maybe that might be useful. So do you know about the 800 number? Have you heard about the 800? So it's a kind of very interesting fact. We can only deploy 800 times within one resource group. So if we deploy 800 first times, it will throw this error. So it says exceed the quota of 800. So
How many times did you try?
Huh?
You run like few deployments a day?
so I experience very often because we use the CI/CD pipeline. We deploy over and over again, and like in a month's time, I got this error. Oh, okay.
So when you get into 800, you cannot deploy anymore?
No. That's what it says. So we have to delete the deployment history before hitting the threshold. Yeah.
That's a stupid constraint. I mean, they should remove that.
That's what it is for now. So
Deploying resources, or you're talking about deploying something inside?
deploying using ARM template, right? So when you go to the resource group, there is the blade called deployment, and then there are a bunch of lists there. And so what time did that deployment has been done or something like that, and through there we can actually rerun that particular the deployment over and over again.
You have a resource group of 20 resources, right? And because I actually, well, we use the same practice. So we have an ARM template per resource, right? So you have 20 resources in 40 deployments, you will run out of 800 already, because each resource group, each deployment, each ARM template will count as one.
Yeah. So we need to. So we need to delete the deployment history before hitting the threshold. But it's also a good idea to copy that deployment history somewhere else for the future tracking purpose, right? So PowerShell doesn't support it. So, and also the funny thing is, fun fact is deleting each deployment history takes about 30 seconds to 60 seconds, right? So 800 deleting takes more than 6 hours. So, but because the PowerShell doesn't support the parallel for each loop, so I try to find how to achieve these things, but it's very complicating, and it doesn't support the copying the data, the deployment history data to somewhere else. It's kind of the programming.
If this happens for, say, this wouldn't happen for production. It would happen for dev or test. You could just remove the resource directory, the resource group, and then recreate it.
That would help.
Not for production.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think you'll be deploying 800 times for production.
No. For your dev test environment, I don't need too much worry about that. For the production, who knows? So instead of using the PowerShell, I would suggest to use the logic apps to manage those kind of the deployment history. It supports the parallel for each loop, so it takes less than 16 minutes. So from the 6 hours to 16 minutes use logic apps, right? So this is how the logic apps run. So basically, it gets all the deployment history and store that history to the table storage and then delete it, right? So we keep all the deployment history here, right? And then delete everything. So we can run this logic app periodic, like once a day or once a week, depending on your situation. So if you are interested in looking at the logic apps, go to that the GitHub repository and have a look at that. So all done. So let me summarize. So we have briefly looked at what ARM template is and how ARM template, why we should use ARM template, and we have briefly discussed about how to write ARM template, how to test ARM template, how to deploy ARM template, and finally we have briefly looked at how to manage deployment history, something like that. So I hope these things is the points are very informational for you. So any questions so far?
I've never written an ARM template, but I've edited a lot, because the only decent way of doing it seems to be build the resources, export it from the portal, and then edit it and make it look how you want. Is there an alternative way?
Could you, I don't understand the question.
Well, is there a way of writing ARM templates easily from scratch, from an empty document? How does everybody export it from the portal?
Yeah, good question. So there is no easy way of the writing ARM template. So as a starting point, I would suggest going to the GitHub as a quick start template, and start from there. Just copy and paste and look into that. Once you get used to it, actually there is a pattern. So, and also depending on your the situations, we can parameterize all the ARM template. So yeah, so from there we can make ARM template much simpler or much sophisticated.
So in the deployment section, I've seen that they've got a drop down of the latest templates in there.
Yeah.
You can always use that and test out a deployment in Azure itself if you really want to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of the best places if you're an amateur to start.
Mm-hmm.
But if not, I think the best place would be GitHub to use that.
Yes. Yeah. And also, GitHub provides also with a bunch of the similar ARM template for different purposes, slightly differences, something like that. So.
Also, in terms of the deployment history,
Yeah.
if you actually deploy through Azure itself,
Yeah.
it stores the template, the history as Microsoft.template.
Yes. Yes. That's right. Yeah.
You can run it 100 times, but it will still be one history in there.
Right. Because it has the same name.
Yes. So it's not actually a history, but it's just the naming that you put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you deploy it from VSTS,
Mm-hmm.
it just gives it a name.
Mm-hmm.
So it just comes in as your history.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not actually a history. It's just the name that you give. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's correct.
It's
Yeah.
800 unique names
Mm.
against 800 deployments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for example, in your test environments or
Mm.
dev environments, you can just use the same name.
That's
You
right.
don't care about the audit history or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's in production.
Yep.
But how many times you would run it in production? I don't know. I have seen about 7, 10 in
Mm.
most of my production applications. Well, yes, in dev.
Mm.
right?
Yeah. Who knows in the future? And you're right. Within the VSTS, the ARM template deployment task it manually put some the garbage text after that. So it actually adds up all the way up to the 800 very easily. So if we use different the CI/CD pipeline like what is it the Octopus or whatever, we can PowerShell.
From PowerShell, you can define the name actually.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
name.
So in that case, we don't have to we don't have to worry about the use of all the 800 history anyway. But yeah, it's good things to know. Any other questions?
Can we export, like if we're running environment, can we export it as a ARM template, the whole environment itself?
Within the resource group, there is the blade called automation script. So
The ARM template?
yeah, so use that. But that is not. If you see that, you will not be happy. Yeah, but it's actually it's a good starting point.
It's a good starting point. That's the common practice I've seen.
Mm.
That's the common practice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if you are not quite sure, just create the resources through the portal and go to the automation script and look at the structure, and that you will get the idea.
You just need to tidy it up, remove some of the unique identifiers, some of the unique names that they gave it. Just tidy it up. Should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Read all the errors, all the exclusions, all what you don't get, all these resources were not exported.
Yeah.
The resource manager is probably not too bad as well if you want to then just post that out and then compare it with something else. It's a bit cleaner.
Yeah.
You mean the resource explorer?
Yeah.
Explorer is one of the best places.
I mean, because even some of the ones that it says, oh, I don't know how to export this, you can go into Resource Explorer and boom,
Mm.
that aren't actually right.
Yeah.
And then the last level is CLI. Show the definition of the resource. You get the full JSON.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
Microsoft support Resource Explorer from the instance, the resource itself from most of the resources. If you just search for resource and find resource, click, it just nicely flows on to where you want to go in, rather than really going to the Resource Explorer. So I find it really nice when you try to use it.
yeah, it's very nice to use Resource Explorer, but make sure that it doesn't show us the full the resources. And so sometimes I have yeah I want to find a certain the resources, but it doesn't show up on the Resource Explorer. Yeah. So I don't know why they don't appear on that, but sometimes what Microsoft says is by design. So what can you do now? Yeah. So.
You are an MVP, okay? You're not supposed to say that.
So the biggest problem that I'm having right now is how to manage lots of people using different templates for the same resource.
Mm-hmm.
So linked templates is a good solution, but apart from that, do you have any other recommendations
Mm-hmm.
So is there any other way that you would recommend that you should be using?
So yeah, so what I suggest is the create the granularize the Azure resources as much as possible. So, for example, you are dealing with 5 different resources, right? And somebody else is dealing with another 5 different resources, but they are all within the one single the resource group, and they are some kind of overlapping. So in that case, so if we separate all the resources in every single ARM template, right? And then if I want to use the overlapping one, and we can only look at that part, and you just can combine whatever you want, and that person can combine whatever they want, something like that. So that's what I would suggest.
So we keep using individual templates.
For one separately, put it into one project and make that available to the other projects for what you do. So you define what storage account template looks like. You host in a source repo, which only you can use. And then for your devs who want to deploy it, you make that artifact available so they can just use that and user parameters in there.
So how do I need version if you publish a new version?
That's why they can select whichever version or build they're able to build.
Right. Any other questions?
I
Yeah.
have a suggestion around version control or source code
Yep.
management for ARM templates.
Mm.
How do you sort of manage it or version control those templates?
You mean the version controlling of ARM template?
Yeah. And
They would be in the code, right? So
Yeah.
they would be part of the code in the Git repository.
So you can just simply so same as the other C# code or Python code or whatever. Yeah.
They are, at least in all the practices that I have seen, they are stored as part of the code in the same Git repository or TFS repository, whatever. And they just get pulled during build time, or
Yep.
deployment time.
So once you push your commit into the source code repository, the build pipeline will take the ARM template and do all the testing or whatever. Then if all the testing passes, it automatically goes into the release pipeline and do the same deployment over and over again.
Do you tend to only deploy the ARM template when you know there's been a change to it, or do you do it on every release?
It depends on your situation. So ARM template is all about the infrastructure side, right? So infrastructure doesn't need to be changed over time, but sometimes we might need to change some kind of things. So if ARM template is changing, which means environment or infrastructural change happens, right? So then, yes, if we change ARM template or any changes happening on ARM template, we do the release.
What I have seen as a common practice, deployment happens regardless of whether there is change into the ARM template or not, just in case somebody went into the portal or tweaked something. So the deployment happens regardless. Whenever there is a code change, regardless whether it's in the ARM templates or in other part of the code, the deployment keeps happening. I feel safer doing that.
But it always seems to take 5 minutes to deploy an ARM template that does nothing. And I just didn't like that pause.
So it's also a good idea to separate the ARM template deployment release pipeline, which is all about the infrastructural side, and create another release pipeline for application deployment, something like that. So so there is no harm to deploy like the app service instance, for example. There is no harm to deploy over and over again. The code is still there, the library is still there.
also, if you make changes to ARM template
Mm-hmm.
to add something, if you especially if you already got like a big ARM template, which is a good practice. Sometimes depending on the change, it can behave to what you want, or it can just throw an error. So
More likely than the same.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's why it's best to, as you said, to separate
do not use big template. Yeah. I would definitely recommend not to do it.
That's the takeaway tonight.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Justin.
Yep. Thanks for listening.